There are certain anime series that everyone, even casual fans, has heard of. Naruto, One Piece, Attack on Titan, Death Note. These titles dominate not just fandom circles, but the cultural landscape of anime itself. They are memes, they are icons, they are pillars that new fans are almost required to engage with if they want to be considered part of the community. And then there is Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Ask the average anime fan, and many might tilt their heads and say, isn't that the old space one? A few might vaguely recall its reputation as being very long or very political, but even among seasoned anime watchers, it remains something of a ghost spoken about in hushed tones, always recommended with reverence but rarely watched in full. This is a tragedy, because Legend of the Galactic Heroes, shortened to LOGH or LOTGH, isn't just an anime. It isn't just a classic to check off your list. It is, quite simply, one of the most ambitious, mature, and complete works of animated storytelling ever created. Spanning 110 episodes with movies and side stories, LOGH is adapted from Yoshiki Tanaka's epic 10-volume novel series, itself inspired by both history and philosophy. It tells the story of an interstellar conflict between two superpowers, the authoritarian Galactic Empire and the Democratic Free Planets Alliance, while threading through the lives of two central figures, Reinhard von Lohengrin, the ambitious young genius rising within the Empire, and Yang Wenli, the reluctant but brilliant strategist fighting for the Alliance. At its core, it is a story about ideology, leadership, corruption, and the eternal struggle between freedom and order. But unlike most fiction, LOGH doesn't deal in absolutes. It refuses to paint one side as purely good and the other as purely evil. Instead, it dares to present us with both the strengths and weaknesses of democracy, both the brilliance and dangers of dictatorship, and the sobering truth that human beings flawed, brilliant, selfish, noble shape the destiny of civilizations far more than abstract ideals ever could. So why then is it so underrated? Why does this masterpiece remain in the shadows while less ambitious works dominate anime culture? The reasons are many: its intimidating length, its older animation style, its heavy reliance on dialogue and politics, its refusal to cater to mainstream shonen energy. In a world where anime is often marketed for quick thrills, flashy battles, and digestible storytelling, Legend of the Galactic Heroes demands patience, attention, and reflection. And yet, for those who give it a chance, Legend of the Galactic Heroes becomes life-changing. It reshapes how you think about history, about leadership, about human psychology. It is an anime that makes you feel the weight of time, the inevitability of death, and the haunting realization that progress and tragedy are often inseparable. To understand why Legend of the Galactic Heroes is so monumental, we first need to step back and examine the stage upon which it unfolds. Unlike most anime, which usually narrow their lens to a single town, school, or even planet, Legend of the Galactic Heroes' scope is galactic. Its story stretches across centuries of human colonization, from Earth's decline to the rise of interstellar empires. The central conflict is simple in concept but immense in execution: the Galactic Empire, a monarchy modeled after Prussian-German traditions where aristocracy dominates and succession is often determined by lineage, military power, or cunning politics. At the beginning of the story, the empire is decadent, bloated with corruption, and dominated by selfish nobles who exploit the common people. Into this decaying structure steps Reinhard von Lohengrin, a young man of unmatched talent who seeks to tear down the old order and rebuild the empire under his vision, the Free Planets Alliance, a democratic federation formed by those who fled the empire's tyranny. The alliance is in theory a beacon of freedom, but in practice it struggles with bureaucracy, corruption, and the apathy of citizens who take democracy for granted. Its politicians are often self-serving, its institutions slow to act, and its people prone to mob thinking. Within this flawed democracy, Yang Wenli emerges as a reluctant hero and idealist who, at first glance you might think, okay, classic good versus evil, democracy versus dictatorship, but Legend of the Galactic Heroes doesn't allow us that comfort. Instead, it deconstructs both systems. In the Empire, dictatorship under a brilliant, benevolent leader like Reinhard can produce stunning efficiency, reform, and stability. But what happens when that leader dies? Who ensures the system remains just? Absolute power may bring glory, but it is also fragile, dependent on the morality of a single person. In the Alliance, democracy allows freedom, debate, and personal rights, but it is also slow, vulnerable to corruption, and easily sabotaged by selfish leaders or uninformed voters. As Yang himself observes, there are few wars between good and evil, most are between one good and another good. This willingness to embrace moral ambiguity is what sets Legend of the Galactic Heroes apart. Where most anime give us comforting clarity, heroes versus villains, justice versus evil, Legend of the Galactic Heroes forces us to comf. And it doesn't shy away from the brutality of war. Battles in Legend of the Galactic Heroes are not thrilling spectacles for the sake of entertainment. They are tragedies. Fleet combat is depicted with strategy, tension, and enormous loss of life. A single decision can cost tens of thousands of lives, and commanders feel the psychological weight of their choices. Unlike shonen anime where death is rare or reversible, in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, death is permanent, inevitable, and often devastating. Characters we grow attached to, brilliant tacticians, loyal friends, noble soldiers, die suddenly without melodrama. The universe moves on indifferent. This makes Legend of the Galactic Heroes feel more like reading a history book than watching a typical anime. Indeed, one of its greatest achievements is how it mirrors real history. The Empire reflects monarchies like Imperial Germany or Tsarist Russia. The Alliance resembles modern liberal democracies with all their strengths and flaws. The battles echo Napoleonic campaigns, World War II strategies, and Cold War politics. Legend of the Galactic Heroes isn't a fantasy removed from reality, it is a mirror showing us ourselves in the stars. And then, layered on top of this massive political backdrop are the personal stories. Reinhard and Yang are not just pawns of ideology, they are human beings, with dreams, flaws, and contradictions. Reinhard's rise is fueled by grief for his sister and his burning desire to change a corrupt world. Yang's brilliance hides his laziness, his desire for a quiet life, and his cynicism toward politics. They are foils, two geniuses on opposite sides of history, destined to clash, yet bound by mutual respect. This dual focus on the macro-civilizations, ideologies, galactic politics, and the micro-personal struggles, psychology, friendships, is what gives Legend of the Galactic Heroes its epic depth. Few works of fiction, anime or otherwise, manage to balance such scales. By the end of even a few episodes, you realize Legend of the Galactic Heroes is not just telling a story, it is presenting a philosophical inquiry into history itself. It asks, what drives the rise and fall of nations? Are individuals truly the makers of history, or are they swept along by greater forces? Is democracy sustainable, or will humanity always long for the clarity of strong rulers? These are not easy questions. Legend of the Galactic Heroes does not provide easy answers, and that is precisely what makes it stand out. When people first hear about Legend of the Galactic Heroes, they often imagine a cold, impersonal story, fleets clashing in space, political debates echoing across parliamentary chambers, and sweeping historical narration. And yes, that's true, but it's only half the truth. At the heart of Legend of the Galactic Heroes are people. Not symbols, not archetypes, but fully realized, flawed, contradictory human beings who carry the weight of history on their shoulders. And the genius of Yoshiki Tanaka's writing carried through into the anime adaptation is that these characters are not there to simply push the plot forward. Instead, their inner psychology, their struggles, and their desires are the story. They are walking embodiments of political ideologies, but they are also fragile humans shaped by trauma, ambition, and longing. To understand Legend of the Galactic Heroes' SS power, we must understand its two titans, Reinhard von Lohengram and Yang Wen-li, and then the constellation of figures who orbit them. Reinhard von Lohengram, the golden brat who became a legend. Reinhard begins his story not as a flawless leader but as a wounded child. His entire life is shaped by one traumatic event, the loss of his sister Anna Rose. She is taken as a concubine by Kaiser Friedrich IV, effectively sold into the imperial court to secure protection for the Lohengram family. For Reinhard, this is not just a personal tragedy, it is a symbol of the empire's rotting aristocratic order. At that moment, Reinhard's psychology is set. He swears to rise through the military, seize power, and topple the corrupt nobility. He will build a new empire where no one's sister, no one's loved one will ever again be forced into submission by a system of privilege. This is what makes Reinhard so compelling. He is both a reformer and an autocrat. His dream is noble: destroy corruption, protect the people, establish justice. But his means are absolute power consolidated in one man, himself. He is both savior and tyrant, hero and dictator. Psychologically, Reinhard is fueled by three forces: ambition and pride. Reinhard is brilliant and knows it. He has little patience for incompetence, and his pride pushes him to prove himself constantly. This makes him a dazzling leader, but also blinds him to the importance of compromise, grief, and love. His devotion to Anna Rose is both his strength and weakness. She is his anchor, his motivation, but also his soft spot. Unlike most rulers, Reinhard is emotionally vulnerable. Fear of emptiness. Reinhard's greatest tragedy is that he fears victory itself. Once he conquers the galaxy, once there are no more enemies to defeat, what remains? His drive is fueled by struggle. Without it, he faces an existential void. This makes him one of the most psychologically rich dictators in fiction. Unlike a stereotypical villainous emperor, Reinhard is a man you can admire, even love. His brilliance and charisma make him irresistible. But his flaws remind us of the danger of investing too much power in one person, no matter how gifted. Yang Wen-li, the reluctant defender of democracy. If Reinhard is fire, Yang Wen-li is water. If Reinhard is ambition incarnate, Yang is indolence and cynicism. He never wanted to be a soldier. His dream was to become a historian, studying the rise and fall of empires. Ironically, he becomes a participant in history instead, dragged into war against his will. But this is where Yang's brilliance shines. He is not motivated by power or glory. He fights because he must, because if he does not, democracy will fall to authoritarianism. His psychology is almost tragic. A man who wants peace but is doomed to war because no one else can do what he does. Yang is the embodiment of the paradox of democracy. He believes in it deeply, values freedom above all else, but despairs at how messy and flawed it is. His superiors are incompetent, his politicians are corrupt, and his people often don't understand the sacrifices required to preserve liberty. Yet he still chooses democracy because even a flawed freedom is better than perfect oppression. Psychologically, Yang is fascinating because he balances idealism with cynicism. He knows democracy is imperfect, but he defends it anyway. He mocks politics, yet risks his life for its survival. Genius with laziness. Yang is perhaps the greatest strategist in the galaxy, but he is also notoriously lazy, preferring tea, books, and a quiet life. This duality makes him human brilliant, but not untouchable. Courage with reluctance. He is not a natural warrior. He doesn't love battle, but he rises to the occasion because no one else can. Yang's psychology makes him the perfect foil to Reinhard. Where Reinhard seeks power to change the system, Yang avoids power, trusting in the system itself. Where Reinhard dreams of order, Yang embraces chaos as freedom. Their rivalry is not just military, it is philosophical, a clash between two worldviews embodied in human form. Oskar von Reuenthal, The Tragedy of Beauty and Betrayal. Among Reinhard's admirals, none are as psychologically layered as Reuenthal. Born with heterochromia, one blue eye, one brown, he is marked from childhood as abnormal. His abusive parents feed him a sense of alienation, and he grows up carrying both pride and bitterness. Reuenthal is loyal to Reinhard, but his loyalty is complicated. He admires Reinhard's brilliance, but resents his dominance. Deep down, Reuenthal is torn between wanting to serve and wanting to surpass. He embodies the psychology of envy, devoted yet restless. His downfall comes not from incompetence, but from betrayal, manipulation, and his own inability to reconcile his pride with his position. His story is Shakespearean, a man destroyed not by external enemies, but by his own tragic contradictions. Paul von Oberstein, the cold logician. If Reinhard is charisma and Yang is idealism, Oberstein is pure calculation. Cold, unemotional, and often despised, Oberstein is the necessary evil of Reinhard's empire. He makes the decisions others won't, sacrificing morality for efficiency. Psychologically, Oberstein represents utilitarianism taken to extremes. He believes in Reinhard's vision but strips it of compassion. To him, human lives are pawns on a chessboard, to be moved or sacrificed for the greater good. This makes him deeply unsettling but also essential. He forces us to ask, can a just empire survive without men like Oberstein, or do such men poison it from within? Siegfried Kirchheis, the conscience of Reinhard. Kirchheis is Reinhard's childhood friend, bodyguard, and moral anchor. Where Reinhard burns with ambition, Kirchheis tempers him with kindness. He is the human reminder of Reinhard's better self, the voice urging him not to let power consume him. Psychologically, Kirchheis represents loyalty and conscience. His presence softens Reinhard, but his absence, tragically cut short, accelerates Reinhard's descent into isolation and autocracy. One could argue that Kirchheis' death is not just personal tragedy but the symbolic loss of Reinhard's humanity. Julian Mintz, the heir of Yang's ideals. Julian begins as Yang's ward, a boy who idolizes his mentor, but as the series progresses, he evolves into more than just a side character. He becomes the inheritance of democracy, carrying Yang's ideals into the future. Psychologically, Julian is the embodiment of hope. He represents the next generation, unburdened by Reinhard's ambition or Yang's cynicism. His growth shows us that while history is shaped by giants, it is carried forward by those who come after. Frederica Greenhill, the quiet strength of democracy. Often overlooked, Frederica is one of the most psychologically important characters in the story. As Yang's aide and later his wife, she is the emotional foundation that keeps him balanced. Her love for Yang is not blind devotion. She challenges him, supports him, and ensures his ideals are remembered. She represents the importance of ordinary, steadfast morality in the face of overwhelming historical tides. Where Reinhard has Oberstein as his calculating shadow, Yang has Frederica as his moral light. What makes Legend of the Galactic Heroes' characters so compelling is that they are not symbols alone. Reinhard is not just dictatorship, Yang is not just democracy, they are people. Reinhard grieves, Yang procrastinates, Reuenthal envies, Oberstein alienates, Kirchheis loves, Julian hopes, Frederica nurtures. Through their psychology, we see history not as an abstract machine but as something profoundly human. Legend of the Galactic Heroes reminds us that behind every empire, every war, every ideology are flawed, brilliant, contradictory individuals making impossible choices. And it is this psychological realism, this refusal to make its characters archetypes instead of humans, that makes Legend of the Galactic Heroes stand out as a timeless masterpiece. The war of ideologies. At first glance, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a military space opera. Vast fleets clash in the void of space, battles are waged on planetary scales, and entire civilizations tremble at the decisions of commanders. But beneath the warships, strategy maps, and tactical brilliance, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is not about ships at all. It is about power. More specifically, it is about the question of how humanity should be governed. Should we put our faith in democracy, trusting in the messy will of the people? Or should we allow a single strong leader to unify us, believing that one brilliant mind can achieve more than 1,000 voices arguing? The entire series is a dialogue between these two systems. Neither is presented as perfect. Both are dissected, criticized, and tested under the fires of war. And in this way, Legend of the Galactic Heroes becomes something rare in anime, a philosophical treatise, dramatized through story on the eternal question of politics and power. Democracy, freedom with flaws. The Free Planets Alliance represents democracy. On paper, it is a federation where citizens vote, leaders are elected, and individual rights are protected. But Legend of the Galactic Heroes does not sugarcoat democracy. The Alliance is plagued by corruption, politicians more interested in enriching themselves than serving their people. Short-sightedness, leaders who prioritize re-election over long-term survival. Mob mentality, citizens easily swayed by propaganda, quick to panic, and often blind to the sacrifices required for freedom. Incompetence, generals promoted not by merit, but by connections and favoritism. For all these flaws, young Wenli still believes in democracy. Why? Because, as he puts it, even if democracy has its problems, it's better than a dictatorship where a single mistake can doom millions. Psychologically, democracy is about trusting people to govern themselves, even when they often fail. It is messy, inefficient, and frustrating, but it is also humane. It allows for mistakes to be corrected, leaders to be changed, and rights to be preserved. Legend of the Galactic Heroes' brilliance lies in showing democracy's vulnerability without dismissing its value. It reminds us that democracy is not strong because it is flawless, but because it allows for renewal. The Alliance may stumble, but it does not collapse easily because its foundation is collective. Autocracy, order with fragility. The Galactic Empire represents autocracy. In its decayed state, it is ruled by selfish nobles and corrupt aristocrats who exploit the masses. But Reinhard von Lohengram transforms it. Under his leadership, the empire becomes efficient, reformed, and in many ways more functional than the Alliance. Reinhard's empire is the dream of the philosopher king, a brilliant, just ruler who unifies the state under a single vision. His victories prove the strength of autocracy, decisions are swift, corruption is crushed, and talent is promoted regardless of birth. But here lies the fragility of dictatorship. It depends entirely on the leader. When Reinhard dies, what happens to his empire? Will his successors carry his vision, or will they descend into the same decadence that plagued the old nobles? Psychologically, autocracy appeals to the human desire for clarity. People long for certainty, for strong leadership that cuts through chaos. But that same certainty becomes brittle when tied to the mortality of one man. Legend of the Galactic Heroes captures this paradox perfectly under Reinhard. The empire is efficient and even just, but it is also precarious, balanced on the edge of his brilliance and willpower. The grayness of good and evil. One of the greatest strengths of Legend of the Galactic Heroes is its refusal to present either system as purely good or purely evil. Democracy is not romanticized. Autocracy is not demonized. Instead, we are given gray reality. In democracy, leaders are accountable, but corruption festers. In autocracy, corruption is punished, but freedom is sacrificed. In both systems, war still brings death, and leaders still fail. This is why Young and Reinhard's rivalry is so powerful. Neither is the villain, neither is the hero. They are men embodying competing ideals, each with strengths and flaws. Their war is not about good versus evil, it is about choice versus order, freedom versus efficiency, humanity versus brilliance. The morality of war, beyond governance, Legend of the Galactic Heroes also dives into the psychology of war itself. Battles are not romanticized. There are no super moves or power-ups. Instead, wars are presented as tragedies. When fleets collide, tens of thousands die. Ships are destroyed, but more importantly, lives are erased, ordinary men and women whose names we never know. Commanders carry the guilt of these losses, and decisions are made with the weight of lives on the line. Yang Wen-li in particular embodies this morality. He never celebrates victory. Every win comes with mourning, every battle with sorrow. Reinhard too feels this weight, though he buries it under ambition. The series constantly reminds us war is not glorious, it is catastrophic necessity. This realism makes Legend of the Galactic Heroes stand out. In most anime, battles are thrilling spectacles. In Legend of the Galactic Heroes, battles are sobering reflections on humanity's tendency to repeat history's mistakes, the philosophy of leadership. Another key theme is leadership itself. What makes a great leader? Is it charisma, intelligence, morality, or ruthlessness? Reinhard leads by charisma and brilliance. He inspires loyalty and awe, but risks alienating those who fear his power. Yang leads by compassion and reason. He earns respect through fairness, but struggles to control selfish politicians above him. Oberstein leads through cold calculation, showing us that efficiency without empathy is both effective and terrifying. Kirkus leads through loyalty and morality, reminding us that leadership is not just about commanding, but also about protecting. Legend of the Galactic Heroes forces us to ask, is it better to be feared or loved? To be brilliant or fair? To inspire or to calculate? There is no single answer. Each style of leadership brings both victories and failures. The cyclical nature of history. Perhaps the most profound philosophy of Legend of the Galactic Heroes is its view of history. Yang, the historian, often remarks that humanity repeats its mistakes. Democracies fall into apathy. Dictators rise with promises of order. Wars are fought for ideals but end with compromise and exhaustion. The series suggests that there is no end state of politics, no perfect system that will save humanity forever. Instead, history is cyclical. Democracies decay into dictatorships. Dictatorships crumble into chaos. Out of the ashes, new systems rise only to repeat the same patterns. It is a sobering philosophy, but also a deeply human one. Legend of the Galactic Heroes doesn't promise utopia. Instead, it asks us to remain vigilant, to value freedom, and to recognize that history's wheel keeps turning unless we consciously act to change it. Why this philosophy makes Legend of the Galactic Heroes stand out. Most anime presents morality in simple terms: good versus evil, hero versus villain. Legend of the Galactic Heroes rejects that simplicity. It embraces complexity, ambiguity, and the uncomfortable truth that both democracy and dictatorship can succeed and fail in different ways. This willingness to treat its audience as adults is why Legend of the Galactic Heroes is so underrated. It doesn't pander, it doesn't simplify, it demands patience, thought, and reflection, and in doing so, it transcends anime, it becomes political philosophy in motion. The paradox of Legend of the Galactic Heroes' reputation. Within the anime community, Legend of the Galactic Heroes has a strange duality. Among critics, seasoned fans, and historians of the medium, it is spoken of with reverence, called a masterpiece, the greatest anime ever made, or the crown jewel of space opera. And yet, in mainstream anime culture, it remains nearly invisible. Unlike Attack on Titan, Naruto, or One Piece, you won't see Legend of the Galactic Heroes trending on social media, plastered on merchandise, or referenced in memes. Even many experienced anime fans admit they've never seen it. Why? The answer lies in its barriers to entry, the age and art style. Legend of the Galactic Heroes was released between 1988 and 1997. Its art reflects the style of that era, more realistic, less exaggerated, with muted colors and simpler animation. For new viewers accustomed to high-definition CGI and modern anime aesthetics, Legend of the Galactic Heroes may initially feel dated. This first impression pushes many away before they even give the story a chance. But for those who stay, the art becomes part of the experience. Its realism and restraint match its tone. Characters look like real people, not caricatures. Battles feel monumental not because of flashy visuals but because of scale and gravity. Far from being a weakness, the dated art gives Logi H a timeless dignity. Barrier 3, the density. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is dialogue-heavy. Political debates, historical commentary, and philosophical reflections dominate much of its runtime. It is not fast-paced. It is not designed for quick thrills. For some, this density feels overwhelming or even boring, but for others, it is precisely why the series is so rewarding. Legend of the Galactic Heroes respects its audience. It expects you to think, to follow complex ideas, to remember dozens of characters and their motivations. It doesn't pander. This makes it less accessible, but also more profound. Like a great novel, it demands attention, but rewards it with insights that stay with you long after it ends. Barrier 4. The lack of mainstream exposure. Unlike other iconic anime, Legend of the Galactic Heroes never received a major international push during its original run. It was released directly to video in Japan, not broadcast on television, which limited its audience even domestically. For years, it was mostly known through fan translations, circulating in small anime communities. Even when streaming became widespread, Legend of the Galactic Heroes was not among the first series licensed. Its availability has always been patchy compared to the heavy hitters. This lack of exposure cemented its status as a hidden gem, revered by a niche audience but unknown to the masses. Why these barriers are actually strengths. Here's the paradox. The very reasons Legend of the Galactic Heroes is underrated are also why it is so special. The length allows it to depict history on a galactic scale. You can't tell a story about empires rising and falling in 12 episodes. The art style grounds it in realism, avoiding the exaggeration of modern anime and giving it timeless weight. The density makes it intellectually satisfying. It's not for everyone, but for those who engage, it feels life-changing. The lack of mainstream hype means it has remained pure, untouched by commercialization or trend chasing. It is art first, entertainment second. In a way, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is not meant for the casual viewer. It is meant for those willing to commit, to think, to immerse themselves in a story that demands patience but rewards it with something no other anime offers: the feeling of witnessing history itself. Because of these barriers, Legend of the Galactic Heroes has developed a cult status. Its fans are fiercely devoted, often describing it as not just an anime, but an experience, something that changes how you think about history, politics, and even life itself. This cult status gives Legend of the Galactic Heroes a mystique. It's like a hidden treasure buried in anime history, known to those who seek it, ignored by those who prefer lighter, more accessible fare. And for many fans, that's part of the appeal. Watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes feels like joining a secret society, a community that shares something profound and rare. Even with the modern remake, Dinoites, Legend of the Galactic Heroes remains underrated. The remake has brought some attention back, but it lacks the scale, depth, and gravity of the original. For most, it remains a daunting series from a bygone era. But in truth, that's what makes it timeless. Unlike trends that rise and fade, Legend of the Galactic Heroes remains steady, an enduring masterpiece waiting for each new generation of serious viewers to discover it. The anime that changes you. There are many great anime. Some entertain, some inspire, some stay with you for a while, but very few change you. Legend of the Galactic Heroes belongs in that rare category. It's not simply a story you watch. It's a historical experience that reshapes how you think about power, history, and humanity itself. When you finish Legend of the Galactic Heroes, you don't just remember the battles or the characters. You walk away with new ways of seeing democracy, leadership, war, morality, and even your own role in society. That's what makes it a must-watch. Life lessons from Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Freedom requires responsibility. Through young Wenli, we learn that democracy isn't self-sustaining. Citizens must actively protect it, even when it's inconvenient. If people grow apathetic, freedom erodes. This lesson resonates beyond fiction. Legend of the Galactic Heroes reminds us that liberty is fragile and must be defended. Great leaders are still human. Reinhard von Lohengrin is brilliant, but his pride and loneliness nearly consume him. Young is wise, but his laziness holds him back. The series teaches that no leader is flawless. To idolize them blindly is dangerous. True governance requires systems, not saviors. War is tragedy, not glory. Every Legend of the Galactic Heroes battle leaves scars. The series forces us to confront war not as an exciting spectacle, but as human devastation. In a world where media often glorifies conflict, Legend of the Galactic Heroes reminds us of its cost. History repeats itself. As Yang often observes, empires rise and fall in cycles. Humanity repeats mistakes when it forgets them. The lesson learning history is not optional, it is survival. Even small lives matter. Legend of the Galactic Heroes shows the lives of minor characters, soldiers, and civilians caught in the machinery of history. Their deaths matter. Their choices matter. This perspective humanizes war and politics, reminding us that history is not just about great men, it's about everyone. Why every anime fan should watch it. Even if you don't think you'll love it, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is worth watching because it expands your view of anime, showing that anime can be as intellectually deep and historically ambitious as any great novel. It challenges your patience, teaching you to appreciate slow, deliberate storytelling. It connects you to a tradition. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is often referenced by critics and creators, even if indirectly, as one of anime's most ambitious works. It sets a benchmark. After Legend of the Galactic Heroes, you judge other shows differently. You begin to ask deeper questions. Are the characters realistic? Do the battles have consequences? Does the story say something about life? Why it feels real? One of the must-watch qualities of Legend of the Galactic Heroes is that it doesn't feel like fiction. The narration frames it as history already written. Characters act with believable motives: greed, love, fear, ambition, not melodrama. Deaths happen suddenly, often without fanfare, just like in real life. This realism creates a haunting effect. When the series ends, you feel like you've lived through a historical era, not just watched a story. The emotional impact. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is not just intellectual, it's emotional. You feel Reinhardt's loneliness as he wins everything but loses the people who mattered most. You feel Yang's quiet frustration at defending democracy against people who don't appreciate it. You feel the sorrow of soldiers dying unnamed, their sacrifices barely remembered. By the end, you're left with a mix of awe and melancholy, a feeling that you've witnessed something beautiful and tragic at once. The personal transformation. Every fan who finishes Legend of the Galactic Heroes walks away changed, but in different ways. Some become more politically aware, questioning systems of power in the real world. Some become more reflective, thinking about mortality, ambition, and purpose. Some simply gain patience, learning to appreciate stories that demand time and thought. In all cases, Legend of the Galactic Heroes deepens you. It gives you tools to think differently about both fiction and reality. At the heart of Legend of the Galactic Heroes are two men whose contrasting personalities define the entire narrative. Reinhard von Lohengrin, the golden-haired prodigy who rises from obscurity to seize the throne of the Galactic Empire. Yang Wenli, the reluctant historian turned general who defends democracy with brilliance and cynicism. Their rivalry is not one of good versus evil, but of ideology versus ideology, psychology versus psychology. They are mirrors and foils, two men who shape history, yet are shaped by it in turn. To understand Legend of the Galactic Heroes, one must understand Reinhard and Yang not as archetypes, but as deeply human beings. Reinhard von Lohengrin, the weight of ambition, the origins of drive. Reinhard's psychology begins with trauma. His sister Anna Rose was taken as a concubine by the corrupt Kaiser, a symbol of an empire where power was decayed and humanity disposable. For Reinhard, this injustice planted two seeds: rage at a corrupt system, a burning desire to rise so high no one could take from him again. His ambition was not abstract, it was personal. Every conquest, every battle, every reform traced back to that primal wound. The dream of perfection. Reinhard is a visionary. He doesn't want to simply replace the old Kaiser. He wants to remake the empire into something glorious. Unlike ordinary autocrats, his dream is not selfish, it is almost utopian. But herein lies his paradox. He wants power to create a just world, yet he cannot escape the corrupting solitude of absolute power. His ambition isolates him. By the time he achieves the throne, he is surrounded not by equals, but by subordinates, too awed or too afraid to challenge him. The fear of emptiness. Reinhard's deepest fear is not defeat, it is meaninglessness. If he stops fighting, if he stops conquering, what is left? Kurhai's death removes his moral anchor. Anna Rose withdraws from public life. His victories bring him glory, but also loneliness. Psychologically, Reinhard is addicted to momentum. He must always push forward because standing still would mean facing the emptiness inside. His empire becomes less a project of justice and more a shield against despair. Reinhard's psychology is the tragedy of ambition, that no victory can fill the void within because the void is not in the world, it is in the soul. Yang Wenli, the reluctant defender, the accidental hero. If Reinhard is ambition incarnate, Yang is its opposite, a man who never wanted power at all. His dream was to be a historian, to study the past, not shape the future. But fate pushed him into the military, and his brilliance made it impossible to stay obscure. His tactical genius saved lives, won battles, and elevated him into legend whether he wanted it or not. The philosophy of laziness. Yang often jokes about his laziness, about how he'd rather drink tea or read books than command fleets. But beneath this humor lies a deep philosophy. He knows power corrupts. He distrusts heroes, including himself. He sees democracy as flawed, but as the only system that can survive human weakness. Yang's laziness is in fact his refusal to glorify power. Unlike Reinhard, he has no dream of greatness. His only dream is to preserve freedom long enough for humanity to maybe, just maybe, learn from its mistakes. The historian's vision. Yang's background as a historian shapes his psychology. He constantly views the present through the lens of the past. He sees cycles, patterns, repetitions. This gives him wisdom. He avoids the arrogance of believing he can end history. Melancholy. He knows humanity rarely learns and may repeat the same tragedies forever. Unlike Reinhard, who dreams of breaking the cycle, Yang accepts the cycle, but insists it's worth defending democracy anyway. The burden of democracy. Yang's greatest struggle is not against Reinhard's fleets, but against his own people. The Free Planets Alliance is corrupt, short-sighted, and ungrateful. Politicians undermine him. Citizens fail to appreciate the freedoms he protects. Even his victories are used against him as leaders fear his popularity. Yet Yang never betrays democracy. Even when it fails him, he defends it. Because for him, democracy is not about results, it is about principle. This makes Yang both heroic and tragic. He knows democracy is fragile, but he defends it anyway because he believes freedom is worth every flaw. Psychologically, Yang represents the tragedy of democracy, that its defenders are often unappreciated, and its survival often depends on people too humble to seek power. Reinhard and Yang, the eternal dialogue. Reinhard and Yang are opposites, yet they complete each other. Reinhard shows the allure of ambition, the dream of remaking the world through brilliance and power. Yang shows the necessity of restraint, the humility to accept human weakness and defend flawed freedom. Together, they embody the eternal question: should humanity be led by the strong or govern itself despite its flaws? Their rivalry is not just military, it is philosophical, psychological, eternal. Why their psychology resonates? Reinhard and Yang endure as timeless characters because they reflect real human struggles. Reinhardt is every visionary leader who dreams too big, who sacrifices everything for glory only to find loneliness at the summit. Yang is every reluctant protector of freedom, every quiet thinker who sees the flaws but still believes in principles. Their psychology transcends anime. They are figures of history, as real as Caesar, Napoleon, or Lincoln, yet also deeply human, as flawed and fragile as anyone. The legacy of their rivalry. In the end, Reinhardt and Yang are remembered not just for their victories, but for what they represented. Reinhardt, the brilliance and danger of absolute ambition. Yang, the wisdom and fragility of democracy. Their deaths are not the end, but a passing of the torch. Julian inherits Yang's ideals. Reinhardt's empire endures, but without his vision, it risks decay. Their rivalry becomes history, but their psychology becomes myth lessons for every generation about ambition, freedom, and the human soul, a story of humanity. At its core, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is more than a space opera. It is a meditation on human nature, history, and morality. Every episode, every battle, every political maneuver is a study in how humans think, act, and fail. Reinhardt shows us ambition's brilliance and danger. Yang teaches the value of humility, patience, and principle. The supporting cast demonstrates loyalty, envy, courage, and corruption. The galaxy itself becomes a mirror of humanity, with its endless cycles of rise, fall, hope, and despair. This is what sets Legend of the Galactic Heroes apart. It doesn't simply entertain, it educates, provokes, and resonates. Why it changes how you see anime. After watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes, you cannot look at anime the same way. You begin to notice depth in storytelling, or the lack thereof, in other shows. You realize that animation can carry philosophy and history, not just fantasy and action. You understand that characters can be flawed, human, and enduring, leaving lasting emotional and intellectual impressions. Legend of the Galactic Heroes sets a benchmark. It teaches that anime can be art, and that animation can carry weighty, timeless stories. Lessons for life and leadership. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is not only a story about stars and empires, it is a reflection on life itself. Its lessons are universal. Freedom is fragile. Yang's struggles remind us that liberty requires vigilance and sacrifice. Ambition has consequences. Reinhardt shows the price of success and the loneliness of power. History repeats itself. The series urges us to learn from the past to avoid repeating mistakes. People matter. Every supporting character reinforces that human choices, small and large, shape the world. These are lessons not just for anime fans, but for anyone seeking understanding of politics, leadership, and humanity. A testament to storytelling courage. Legend of the Galactic Heroes succeeded because it dared to be different. It rejected tropes, ignored commercial pressures, and embraced complexity. It did not pander. It did not simplify. It demanded patience, thought, and emotional investment. This courage is its greatest legacy. That animation can tackle the grandest themes of human existence without compromise. If you are a fan of anime or of great storytelling, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is unmissable. It is not a show to skim or watch casually. It is a journey to immerse yourself in, a test of patience and intellect, and a reward unlike any other. Watching it will challenge you, move you, and leave you forever changed. You will see ambition, democracy, war, and friendship in ways no other story presents. And when you finish, you will understand why it is revered by those who know it and underrated only to those who have yet to discover it. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is not just anime. It is a masterclass in storytelling, a meditation on humanity, and an experience that transcends time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe.